Russell Wilson has been traded to the Denver Broncos. Tom Pelissero reports that there is a deal in principle to send 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. In exchange for...
All right, back now with you on Total Access with breaking news out of Green Bay. We go straight to Tom Pelissero on the details of what's going on with Davante Adams, who looks like the Raiders are acquiring him from the Packers. All right.
Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast on this Wednesday. We have a pretty great show for you guys today. We're going to dive right into it. And Captain, I know you have your, well, not into your screen. I mean, you're older. We don't want to get hurt, or, you know, we got a show after this one too. So, you know, calm down.
Are you calling me old?
I said older.
I believe you did.
Old.
Yeah, in fact, wait a second. Let me make sure I have the right speaker on for this. Okay, talk.
No.
Yeah, okay. No. I got my bows on out of my push panel, you know. So this time, the next time you called me old, I'll be able to hear it in like I think, and I know that I'm dating myself on this, Steve Martin Google Phonic, you know, stereo. And that's my boy. You're my boy, Blue. Mundungus, Creevy, with me in the parking lot at Pile High. Oh, did I say that out loud? Yes, Pile High. Pile High Stadium with a great group, a fantastic group of fans of the Broncos. Notice I said Broncos because we're being nice here. But with a great group of Broncos fans. It was so good to see Mundungus and all of that group. And we'll talk about that later. Go ahead and dive, man. Go ahead.
Did you ride the scooter while you were out there?
Did I ride
I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Bearded Blur did make a secondary appearance. But we will wait for confirmation in the chat. I'm pretty sure there was a second appearance of the Bearded Blur. Okay. Although twice.
Two,
yeah.
Not one.
Not
two.
But twice.
Not one. No, actually two.
And we got our confirmation. So guys, we're gonna go right into the recap of the games that we all played against each other, oddly enough, diagonally here as we're situated in today's show. There you go. First off, we haven't done this in a few weeks. I did want to just thank all of you for joining us today. There are quite a number of you in the chat. I just wanted to give a couple shout outs, guys, before we delve right into it. And then, Captain, I'll throw over to you to talk about your experience there at Mile High Stadium and all the other stuff. Thank you, Riker.
I agree.
let's just say, please don't hold your breath. Avatar, thank you for joining us. We have RaiderMan81. Carlos, thank you very much. We do appreciate you joining us. We have Cool Kev. Kev and I always get into it on Captain Jack Show in the chat. It's great. I appreciate you joining us here on the Wild Wild West. Kev's a good guy, though. I really like him. We have the man, the legend, Mundungus Creevy here, who has made Jason, thank you for joining us. And we have Riker Will, appreciate it. Ghost Man, thank you very much. And thank you, Jason, for reminding us that happened again. And over to you, Captain, on that note, since I say that's a pretty positive one for you to use as a springboard, if you will. How about that game on Sunday, and let's get your take on everything.
Well, first off, again, I'd like to again reiterate the fantastic time that I had with all. I'm going to specifically talk about the tailgate that I was invited to. Actually, a couple tailgates that were Bronco heavy, and I was treated fantastic by a bunch of the fans there. There's always one a-hole, and I'm watching my mouth. There's only, and I'll let you guys know about him later. But the tailgates were awesome. The food was awesome. The time was awesome. So I went from one Bronco centric tailgate to another Bronco centric tailgate. And actually, I got a really nice picture, which let me see if I can pull it up here. With one, God, my eyes are bothering me. I apologize. So while I'm looking for it without my eyes bothering me,
those tears of joy. I mean, I know you won it all.
We did win, but
Yeah.
look at this shot.
Oh, that's Bronco orange.
That's a great shot. I just got that. So
It's smaller. Is that Mary?
And if you guys are watching my mail, whatever. I don't hope there was nothing in my mail that was. Say what?
Was that Mary?
No. That's I got a picture of Mary later. But yeah, that was not Mary. That was one of the ladies that was like F the Raiders and it's not a flip phone, Mundungus. It's actually a higher quality phone than the ones that are out now. People always ask me about it because they like it. It's a LG that is no longer made because it was so awesome. They took it off the market.
Or did it blow up in people's pockets or something like that?
No, it blew up in mine, but no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But again, great time. That was down. There's a tailgate, and Mary knows about it, where there's a whole boatload of flags flying in the corner of the lot. That was me carrying the young lady in my arms. You know, she was giving the Raider fans me a bunch of crap, but she's awesome. And she was hot. She had like a nice.
Did you show her your sword?
No, I kept my sword in my pants, but I appreciate you asking. But yeah, and granted, the sword wasn't popping. It should have been because there was a lot of good looking gals there, including the young lady that was there, Bronco Babe, of course. Mary was, of course, a great cutie. And then there was some other gals over at the tailgate. So lots of fine-looking ladies there. And then, of course, the fine-looking Raider Nation gals with their dudes were over in the other portion. And I'll tell you what, aside from that one a-hole that I spoke about earlier, fantastic camaraderie amongst the fans. And I will go back to Pile High. Oh, I said it again. Sorry. Mile High. Kind of like when I get my garglers out there at least once. I see. I already covered that for Ghost Day. So I got to get it at least once. But I will go back because it was a fantastic time, and it was a great. And not only that, it was a great game. It was a great game. Obviously, better for us, but it was a great game. Hide the plank, yeah, baby, yeah, baby. But we won't go into that. Yeah, JT knows about that. Otherwise known as the voice of God. Go ahead there, brother.
It's okay, Jason. She said it was a very hard game to play.
Hey-oh,
there you go.
Oh, even I got that one. Okay. But did you want me to go into the analytics, or are you going to throw out some stats and figures and things like that? Because before you do that,
yeah,
I'm going to make an admission, okay? And I was sitting down with Mary, and and I'll try to find that shot of us on TV. I was sitting down with Mary. It was right before. Well, actually, this is not the one that made on TV, but this is a nice shot of Mary and I at the end of the game down by the end zone. So that's Mary Brennan. What a great lady that she is. And again, we had the seats right next to her. I'll try to find that one that was on TV. But I was talking with Mary. It's near the end of the first half. I believe the score was 10-7. And the Broncos are going down the field. They are deep inside Raiders territory. And this is the truth. I am not embellishing. I'm not lying. This is the truth. Okay. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Among Dungus and things
You trained him well.
I'm good.
You're probably like, I got some candy in the car. You want to go get a pig?
Keep that old bastard away from me. But so I'm looking, and I told Mary, I said, Mary, I am a observer of the Raider teams for a long time now, and I can usually tell by midway through the second quarter if they're going to win or not. And I'm telling you right now, I haven't seen anything that looks like life spark. Things along those lines, and I'm just probably I'm letting you know now. I think the Raiders are going to lose today, which was immediately followed by a certain running back fumbling the ball. Okay, literally. I mean, the words were just coming out of my mouth. Okay, and then I looked at the field, and Wilson had just handed off to some guy whose name escapes me because he's no longer a Bronco. And he fumbled the ball because Max Crosby made a fantastic play. Or I actually think it was Max. Might have been somebody else. Fumbles the ball, falls on it, or somebody fell on it. And the Broncos, instead of what was looking like a sure 7 points. And by the way, that would have been the first time that the Raiders stopped anybody in the red zone was on that series, because the Broncos fell on the ball after the fumble, and then the next play, it was blocked. And that I think was the Max Crosby spike. And after that, I'm like, I looked at Mary, I'm like, maybe we'll see about the rest of the game, because that was the spark. That was the spark, because up to that point, so I was right. Crosby punched it out, and he also blocked the field goal. So that was great. 2 great plays by Crosby back to back. But up until that point, I didn't see anything from the Raiders. I really didn't. I didn't see anything that was going to let me know that they were going to be the winners of that game. And it was great. It was great from that point. And fantastic rest of the game. Nip and tuck. Little you go ahead, we go ahead, or we try to tie you, blah, 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 blah. And at the end, when it counted, Russell Wilson blew the game. Russell Wilson blew the game by throwing an incomplete pass when the Raiders had used their last 2 timeouts, throwing an incomplete pass on 3rd and whatever, stopping the clock, okay, which necessitated a punt, which had the Raiders on like 1 or 2 plays later on, a nice wheel route by Derek Carr to Josh Jacobs, which takes him down to about the 10-yard line. They couldn't punch it in, but Daniel Carlson, who missed his first field goal in like a year and a half, it seems, got the field goal to tie it. And then overtime, maybe 3 plays. I know it was no more than 3 plays. Overtime, great pass by Moreau, great play calling, and great fake. Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that. You take the sack, the clock still runs. The Raiders don't have that all the time that they did.
Do you know who was great at that? Do you know who was great at that? Was Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning in those situations would quite literally self-sack on those plays and just kind of fall to the ground, knowing that there was no that he would rather protect the ball, let the time go off the clock, rather than doing what Wilson did. And it was, I mean, because obviously Broncos fans have seen both kind of on the field for extended periods of time and all that kind of stuff. That was a huge comment that came from a lot of Broncos country, which is, you know, you'd think that as a student of the game, you would have looked at that and picked up on that as Manning in a Broncos uniform, having done that on multiple occasions to save games or at least save drives or both.
Right. Know what the hell to do. Normally it's the quarterback telling people, hey, if you get a first down, keep it in bounds, or if you get a first down, you know, hold the ball, or, you know, situational awareness. And the quarterback is usually the guy that tells everybody else what to do. Okay. And Russell Wilson screwed up.
Yes.
So you think the Russell Wilson move is like the worst move in Broncos history, or are we not ready to make that
No,
determination?
I think a comment like that is sensationalism at its best, and frankly, premature to say at this point. I do. I really think it's you're a little too early in that trade to make a comment like that. Now, if you come see me next year when the Wild Wild West is on, and we're in the same position, I will likely have a different answer for you, because we will have obviously made some changes, and that would simply just mean that the level of play is kind of, we'll call it leveled off, and it ain't high enough.
Yeah.
I was going to say that probably the worst move that the Broncos have made in their history was letting go or trading a certain cornerback to the Raiders, who turned out to be a Hall of Famer by the name of Willie Brown. So, I mean, they'd have to top that. And yes, I'm old, and that's why I know about such things. But if they could beat that one, then they got something.
My history starts in 1992. So
after Captain was done walking to school uphill both ways,
in the snow,
he finished and went back and watched football.
10 miles.
Yeah, 10 miles.
10 miles in a snowstorm, uphill both ways, slippery ice with jagged edges, and
constant threats of bombing.
Oh, I already know you're lying. I already know you're lying, because you said there was snow on the ground, and hearing several of your comments, that's the only part of that that's definitely a lie.
Snow?
Yeah.
When I went to school?
Well, you were in Pittsburgh, right?
I was in Philly, so I actually do know what snow looks like. But if you saw my Facebook photo from like Saturday night, I did have a picture of me with my 2 feet in some white stuff, and I said, hey, for all you out there, this is not cocaine, which is kind of strange to look at if you're a Floridian, so your mind would be off. So, but yeah, no, it's not cocaine. But it's certain, you know, the implications are.
After you got in a fight playing basketball?
I'm sorry, what was that, sir?
There's a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reference that no one got, so never mind.
I didn't hear half of it.
I asked if you moved from Philly to Florida after you got in a fight playing basketball.
Oh, okay. School. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
because a couple of those kids were up to no good, and they started causing trouble in the neighborhood.
There you go.
Yeah.
Navy housing is definitely not Bel-Air. I didn't have an audience.
Is there Bel-Air in Florida?
Moving with your aunt down in Florida.
There you go.
Florida. There is no I. It's Florida. Florda. Florida.
Oh. That's true. I did notice that. I noticed that a lot. That they completely missed that the whole vowel thing.
That's kind of like Nolans. It's not New Orleans. It's Nolans.
Nolans. Yeah. Nolans, Florida.
Yeah. So Captain, the Broncos in this game, and then that'll kind of finish this off, and we'll go to Alex and Coach. You know, the Broncos here really did what we've done the last 2 or 3 games, and yes, he has. Yes. But we did the same thing. Is we came out playing pretty well. We had some good drives that were strung together, despite the Raiders still having some good players on the D line, and the fact that our offensive line is not great. And we did the same thing we've done the last 2, 3, 4 games, which is once the script was up, so was our offensive production. And this is one of the problems that I noted in the Titans game. It's also one of the problems that I've noted throughout the entirety of the season, which is once we have to go off script, the Broncos literally we fall off a cliff, and that's we start going from having offensive success to anemic. And the problem that you end up with that is you have such a good defense on the Broncos that are able to keep you in games. But the problem is we're now getting later into the season. We're having injuries. We are easily now one of the most injured teams in the NFL. And in fact, we overtook the Chargers for that honor coming into last week's game. And because of that, you simply can't afford to play offensive football that inefficiently. And the Raiders, all they had to do was, basically ensure Max Crosby stayed healthy, which he seemingly has done thus far in his career. And he's never going to give up. No, 100%. And he's got a motor that just doesn't end, and he's able to keep going from minute 1 to the very end of the game, regardless of when that is. And that is exactly what you guys ended up having happen in that game, which was the Broncos just could not land drives.
So to go back to your comment about going off script. So now, mind you, I'm not absolving Russell Wilson at all in this comment when I grade and say, right?
You better not.
If the script, if you go off script, or once the script is gone, and I guess you can equate this to maybe 15 to 30 plays, and your offensive production wanes, isn't that on the coaching staff?
No,
it's not.
No.
How is it not? I'm confused. If you have a set level of plays that you call, and once those plays are ran and they're completed, aren't you in on the play caller to call something different, or kind of lean into the idea of just call plays based upon what's working in the game? How is that on
they would normally do that, but then a lot of the times, so for example, even Peyton Manning ran into this, and this is where even Mahomes, Alex, you guys kind of have figured this out this year a lot, and this is why I haven't made any comments about the Chiefs. The Chiefs traditionally this season have started very slow. Okay, so Alex, I'm just going to go all the way there. I'm just going to use your Chiefs as an example. The Chiefs this season have started really slow. They haven't come out of the gate killing it. They haven't done all sorts of craziness and all that kind of stuff. The reason for that is Andy Reid comes out with a whole bunch of scripted plays, and he's got a game plan in mind for what those scripted plays are going to do. He's going to figure out certain things. Andy Reid is smart enough and sharp enough, and Mahomes trusts Andy Reid enough to say, yes, I agree, and kind of follow the game flow that Andy Reid sees from the sideline and Eric Bieniemy sees from the sideline, and then adapts accordingly. The problem I think that we end up with in Denver here is the purpose of those scripted plays is, as you said, is to see what works. How does it function? How does the team respond to this look versus that look? Or on film, we noted that, for example, on the Raiders, we noticed that certain schemes or coverages were susceptible to certain things. So that's what happened in the first half, and that's where the Broncos ended up having some success, more success, arguably. And that's why we ended up where we're at. And we scored a touchdown, and we got the field goal. We actually put points on the board in a reasonable manner. Now, we still didn't have a ton of success because we are still very, very injured. Now, fast forward to the second half. We've gone through and ran through all of those scripted plays. The defense had already started near the end of that second half, near the end of the second quarter. So probably from about halfway through the second quarter on, all the scripted plays had been run out. Now Russell Wilson is completely free at that point to audible into what he wants on the field, which is one risk you take, because if he audibles incorrectly, you get caught and you go 3 and out, bang, 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 right? So that's a possibility. And you're also then relying solely on the offensive coordinator to call the right plays on the fly that work for the team against your opponent without having a ton of information in front of them.
Yeah, I think that's in the job description.
I think that's his job. Like, I don't think that you can put the onus on Russell Wilson to run the offense after the scripted plays are done. I think the offensive coordinator.
I absolutely can if he audibles out of the play that's called and the play that he audibled to doesn't work.
I doubt how he's doing it every single time, though.
I didn't say every single time.
Most offenses, too, they give you 2 plays to see if you get this look. If you don't, kill. You're doing whatever they get. I mean, he's more likely than not giving 2 plays before they go to the line of scrimmage.
But yeah, the 2 plays are coming from the offensive coordinator. So I think the onus, and I do believe that I switched offensive play callers this week, right? The offensive coordinator was calling the play calls versus Hackett, right? Yeah, I switched it up this week, right?
We saw some improvement, generally speaking, with Kubiak calling plays, generally speaking. Generally speaking. The problem still remains is that when we saw what the Broncos had as a product on the field, is we were not successful and we did not sustain long enough drives, and we did not sustain long enough drives that resulted in 6 points, followed by the 1-point conversion or the 1-point field goal. Yeah. And in my opinion, I still am looking at what we're seeing, generally speaking.
That was good.
Roll back, Rack.
Thanks.
So are you saying that our prices end in 88? I hope someone else got that. When you're looking at what the Broncos were able to do, sure, it's not exclusively on Russell Wilson. However, what I can show you on film and on tape is that on multiple plays, even against the Raiders, there was, even on one of the plays that I have just even on my Twitter feed alone, is there was a wide open crosser that one of our players had that was about 9 yards or 10 yards down the field. Russell glanced at that player within less than a second, and he was only able to start the break on his crossing route. Rather than waiting for that to develop, Russ ignored him entirely, went to throw to the right-hand side of the field, and missed the pass. So, as an example, he should know the playbook well enough to know that play, or that, like, the plays that he's now called, or the play that the offensive coordinator is called, entails an 8-yard straight and then a cut or a crosser that's a mid crosser at that point, not a deep crosser, a mid crosser, and then on the right hand side was a post. And so he has all of these different plays that he should know in his mind that he's going to be looking at on the field. He should know that there's a player that's cutting in on the right-hand side and a player that's doing a cut right across, a crosser at about the 8 or 10 yard line. And that he should know that when the receiver is making that cut, that he's about to make a cut across the middle of the field. And it's on him to then make the throw as that receiver's in stride to try to catch him in stride. Peyton Manning makes that throw 9 times out of 10.
Okay.
Russell Wilson ignores that guy because he hates throwing in the middle of the field, and I think part of that is his height.
I'm glad you said that, because that was a point I was going to make about what I heard about it from him, or about him in the beginning of the season. Now I waited to bring it up because I wanted to see it for myself, in a microscope. That based upon his height,
hey, there's a joke in there somewhere.
Well, yeah. But
I just let it. I let it go.
They were saying that based upon Russell's height, that he has issues throwing over the middle of the field or in between the hashes because of his height. He tends to throw more towards the boundary.
He goes boundaries and deep.
Yeah, boundaries and deep because of his height and his inability to see. They also, equate that to missing was Hamler on the crosser to win the game earlier in the season. Yeah, exactly. So they saying that that's a big issue for him based upon his height. So if that's the case, why haven't they addressed the issue of maybe moving the pocket getting him off platform and rolling him out at certain times so he can get the ball to places where people are actually open. I question that as well from a coaching.
That's how he was effective early on anyways, was improvising and getting out of the pocket and hitting people when he's not in front of
he was doing that out of necessity. He was doing that out of necessity. He wasn't doing that because he needed to in a lot of games, because of what Coach just said, where the problem is he's basically standing behind a bunch of guys that are like 6'5", 6'6",
yep.
And he's got another guys that are directly in front of them as a defensive lineman that are just as tall, if not taller, in some cases,
with their hands up, most likely,
with their hands up like this, saying "Good luck."
Right.
And then then you have him that's basically saying, "Can I have a step stool, please?"
He needs to get some lifts,
right?
And some platform shoes or something.
Yeah. And Coach,
right?
And Coach, I think this is just my opinion, and for what it's worth, so you guys can take it the way you want. I believe that this is why you started to see Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, when Hackett was calling the plays, call so many of those plays from out of shotgun, because calling plays out of shotgun allows the field to open up a little bit faster for a shorter quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that Russell Wilson's style of play. So this is actually kind of where his height and style almost are a mismatch, because his style of play is that outside zone, general kind of West Coast offense that you're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that he wants to play from shotgun like Drew Brees because it's easier for him to see things. And the two don't always jive when you have those types of blocking schemes and stuff together, or just general schemes together. And Hackett was trying to mesh the two.
Oh boy.
And I think that was, we've made it, guys.
Let's go.
There we go. Wasn't my chat, so I'm not the one this time.
Yeah. So
I'm getting it.
You getting it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm getting it up. I'm getting it up.
No.
Hey, easy, killer.
So
do not click on the sexy photo.
Exactly. Exactly. It's spam and not the meat.
Machine gun jubblies.
Great Austin Powers reference, dude. Kudos.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that was pretty well. I thought that was well placed.
Kudos.
Yeah. So with regards to Wilson, you had this like literally his skill set and what works best are almost juxtaposed.
Mm-hmm.
Is he works best out of shotgun, but his style works best from running at it out of center. And then so Hackett was trying to take some of the plays that you typically run under center and run them out of shotgun. And then that's kind of where you saw a lot of the issues earlier in the season. And that's now where you're seeing Kubiak, who is quite literally his father's son, who says, "Hi, Russ, how are you doing? My name's Kubiak." Which means you're running all of your plays out of center or under center. Enjoy your new stay with the Broncos. And you actually saw an improvement overall in Russ's play. But
yeah, I was going to mention that. Yes. Sorry if I'm going to talk with a lollipop in my mouth, but with Kubiak running the plays, and I'm going to use it as a pointer stick too. Oh, frick, we got more bots.
For all tastes.
Or that's not on mine. That's on yours.
It's gone. We're good.
Okay. Anyway, the way that Broncos came out with the 7 and the 3, they played wonderfully. Those scripted plays were great, and that's one of the reasons why I made I alluded to the fact that I ain't seeing the Raiders win this game was based upon. Yeah, dude, these are left over from Halloween. I got a whole bag of them.
How many licks does it take to get to the center?
Wow. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. That's going to go down the rabbit hole. We don't need to go down.
The cartoon answer
is 3. The cartoon answer is 3.
Is it a coincidence that once you got this lollipop out, we started getting all these sexy sites on here? I don't think so.
I'm just saying. Cap's over there advertising.
Yeah.
Candy little girl.
Oh, goodness. Oh, Jesus. See, that's what I said.
Anyway.
Reel it back in.
And here we are, entrenched in the hole.
There you go.
Oh, that went downhill fast.
It really did.
That went way downhill fast.
We're talking.
I'm just going to say that Kubiak, I'm gonna reel it back. Kubiak called a hell of a game, and that's why I thought that the way that they were playing, that they were going to win. They were going to win.
It was a hell of a first half because he didn't like his second half play calling.
Well, Coach. That's my point, right? Is you have the same offensive coordinator. Clearly, he recognized a bunch of things and scripted a bunch of plays that worked well when they were scripted in that first, we'll call it quarter and a half. Right. And from the quarter and a half mark on, it went downhill. And so then what it was is, from a Broncos perspective, it's then on you and an offensive coaching staff to look at what failed in that back half of the second quarter when you were not on script, readjust and tweak accordingly, and then come up with a couple plays from your playbook that you may not have run as part of your script to throw in every once in a while to basically make your opponent think a little bit more and perhaps adjust their defensive scheme, especially if they work. Right?
I'm actually going to make one interjection as well and give credit. And boy, this is going to be hard for me to say. Give credit to Patrick Graham, who realized that the defense wasn't working on those scripted plays when he was running zone, and then he came out and changed it up and was running man-to-man. And the receivers that the Broncos had were incapable at that point of getting the right passes by older midget, because there's young midget quarterback. This is an older midget quarterback. And the game plan was lacking thereafter, but it was a great change by Graham going from zone to man. And then when you were locked up, that's when the defense of the Raiders got more of those sacks. Was in the second half, was just that change of philosophy as well. So it was a combination of things.
Yeah, well, I would lay that at the feet of OC as well. He has to adjust to that adjustment. And coming out of the second half, after looking at the film at halftime, you should really understand what they're trying to do to you and adjust your game plan accordingly. So it should have got better, not worse, in my opinion. That's what puzzles me, is the fact that, we can give Bill Belichick all the crap in the world, but he's the king of halftime adjustments. Whether it's legal or illegal, he's the king of that. They don't make the same mistakes in the first half that they do in the second half. That's typically the rule of order. So that's definitely something you have to lay at the feet of the coaches in that regard.
No, and I agree that I'm not absolving the Broncos coaches fully at all, or even at all for that matter. However, I am looking at what has remained consistent, and that is the coaches were the ones that developed and implemented the scripted plays. Most of our games for the Denver Broncos, those scripted plays have worked. And typically speaking, for scripted plays, the quarterback is on a leash. And what I mean by that is the only way that they're actually, and someone like Wilson would be given this kind of latitude, is only if the play is so egregiously bad can you audible out of it when you're in the script, because the script is meant to, identify things as well as be successful. That's just the way it works. That's why you script those plays. And so as a result of that, I'm basically looking at what the common denominator is. And I'm struggling to look at and I'm looking at Clint Kubiak, who I know can call plays because he did a pretty good job in Minnesota. And I'm looking at Nathaniel Hackett, and I'm looking at the fact that Kubiak called a lot of these plays that are better designed to run from under center, and he called them from under center. And then I'm looking at Hackett, who tried to basically take under center plays and mesh them. And considering he was meshing things that weren't meant to work, he actually did a pretty good job of it because there was a bunch of wide open receivers. Right. So I think you have to give Hackett some credit in that regard, and the fact that it's not like there weren't wide open receivers, just that Wilson wasn't throwing to them because he couldn't see them. right? And so, and that's not meant as a knock, and I'm not trying to be rude or crass against Wilson. I'm literally calling it exactly as I see it on film. And so when you look at the way that played out, Kubiak kind of went back to what Russell Wilson should be running and how the play should be ran, and we ended up with a very similar result. So the only common denominator between the two offensive coordinators who called different plays under different blocking schemes and under different kind of protections, the only common denominator was the quarterback, which then says that he's clearly ignoring certain elements of the field. And certainly one of the reasons why you bring in a veteran quarterback like that for the team like the Denver Broncos is that you expect a quarterback that has more range. And if you don't have more range, then you basically have a complete section of the field that's completely ignored, and it's not going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to throw over to you, Coach. Similarly speaking, for the Chargers, you had your two staple wide receivers back in Allen and Williams, and as we were, we can talk about how brief they were, but by and large, one of the things that Williams is known for is high pointing balls, catching balls over guys, jump balls, those types of things. That's kind of what he's known for as a receiver. One of the things that sets him apart in the league and makes him so unique. And when you're coming back from an injury that can be aggravated when you land on it the wrong way, and you high point a ball and land on it the wrong way, as he did, you end up with the exact same thing that you guys had there, the Chargers against the Chiefs. So with regards to that game, just as the Broncos, it's important to scheme the right way and map out the right plays and make the right adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. The same thing would hold true for the Chargers and your coaching staff as it pertains to ensuring that some of your guys stay healthy in your game. And that would be to intentionally limit those types of plays where some of your star wide receivers that are nowhere near 100% cannot get injured.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of things to get into unpacking this particular game. And I think having Keenan on the pitch count, he wasn't in on every play, which ironically enough, that the commentator even pointed out, I think it was Collinsworth that said that he was basically giving tells in a sense, because if he was coming in, you kind of knew it was a pass play. They were kind of leaving him out on rundowns and things of that nature. So that's something you can clue on. So that was one thing about that. And of course, Mike going out on the first drive and not coming back into the game was an issue. But I mean, overall, how we started the game, I loved. I mean, quite frankly, if you want to go to the end of the game, we led practically the whole game. So that right there is a recipe for a good, solid game plan, a good solid script that you run from top to bottom, first quarter to fourth quarter. But the first drive,
you
3.
You got the ball. You scored 20. You were up 27-23 with like a minute and a half left.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, Coach. I did want to quickly speak to this comment. I have come up for a name for Davis's haircut. The Super Bowl.
I'm lost. Who's Davis?
Well, if you've ever seen Mark Davis,
that yes, okay, we were talking
he
Raiders.
quite literally goes to a barber and they have to it's cut dead straight. The only way you can do that is with a line or something there, and so someone has put a bowl
and just cut.
So it is quite. I have now named that the Super Bowl as a haircut, and there's some other comments that can be made there in terms of Super Bowls and the last time that happened. But we won't go there.
Something that he won't see if he continues to be the owner. Actually, I take it back. The caretaking de facto owner, because his mom owns the team. Okay.
She does. Yeah.
She does. Carol owns the team. It's she lets her little boy play. Here, go play. Go play, Marky. Here's the team. Go. Shoo. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So, Coach, apologies for jumping in there, but let's get into the Chargers side of that game in terms of what went right, what went wrong, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, perfect, first drive, they scored 3, we got 7 in 3 plays, which is, a staunch difference from the last several weeks we've had, woes in the first half kind of been slow starters and having to kind of play from behind in most games. But the last 2 games, for some reason, we've jumped on our opponent, the 49ers and the Chiefs. We jumped out to a pretty decent lead. We just can't seem to hold it. And I think that the problem with that is the simple fact that they get complacent in the second half when they're play calling. Of course, Kelsey took over. Yeah.
He went God mode, bro.
Yeah, but regardless of who Travis Kelsey is or isn't, respect to him. But I would like to say that
IDDQD.
You could get away from those particular things if you play more aggressively in the second half. So I think that's the biggest problem that the Chargers have is their complacency in their play calling. It's one of those things where they get they're just anti-proactiveness. Like they're always reacting to what's happening versus being proactive. Because if you look at the first few series, we get the ball at first, we get the ball at the half. They didn't stop us much in the first half. I'm not sure we punted in the first half. Running game was actually working pretty well, although I didn't lean on it as much as they should have. One punt. So okay, yeah. So one punt in the first half. When we have punted in the first half 4 or 5 times against other teams, they're not as good as the Chiefs. But I digress. So regardless of that, I would say that the idea of kind of playing with the lead and not keeping the foot on the gas has been an issue all year. It's been an issue for a couple of years. But honestly, if you want to go back to the start of Brandon Staley's tenure, kind of waiting to the team gets themselves back into the game, and then you get back to aggressively calling plays and they're trying to aggressively score points. That kind of mentality is a losing mentality. I just have to be honest about it. It's a losing mentality. You can't wait until the chips are down and hope that Herbert or somebody's going to save you at the end of the game. Because you had places and times in this game when it comes down to if you keep scoring, you put more and more pressure on your opponent. Where KC or anybody that you play, then they tend to change their ability to call plays. They change the way they do things, and that will kind of maybe play into your hands in a sense. Because everybody knows that our defense is not up to the level or par that we hoped it would be with all the additions we've had. So, and not to mention that KC has a great offense. So you have to be honest with yourself and like, look, if you're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to knock him out. There's no waiting for the scorecards here. There's no hoping the judges rule in your favor. You have to take the game from them because they're not going to stop running their offense. They're going to keep the foot on the gas at all points and all times of the game. So if you think that you have enough, you don't. So it literally has to come down to a situation where, because I like what a commentator said after the game in recap. He said that it's different for the Chiefs when you have the ball and you can win by a field goal, in a sense. So you can kind of run the ball, run the clock out, and don't give Mahomes the opportunity to get back on the field. But if you give them any semblance of time, and you have to basically give them the ball back in each stretch, there's an opportunity or possibility that they could take the game from you. So going back to my third quarter rant is that you really had opportunities to score more points in the third quarter when you kind of squandered those opportunities being conservative when you could have put more points on the board. Now, had you scored at any particular point in that particular time frame, they win the game. So again, leaving them in games and not going for the knockout blow, it's always been the Achilles heel of the Chargers since Staley's tenure. So I think that if that doesn't change, then you're always going to be second place. I think that's what it really boils down to. Like I said, on top of the fact that you had situations where you could have leaned in on the running game and taking the clock out of it, make the game shorter, things of that nature, instead of going 3 and out and giving them the ball back. We were fortunate to get a few stops in the second half, but yet again, you keep giving them opportunities. You're either good or mediocre. At some point or some time, they're going to be able to get back into the game, and then you're in a dogfight. So I think that's where the Chargers went wrong. And I really do. I think that outside of that, we won a whole lot of egregious penalties called on us. Outside of the holding call on Derwin, I don't know about that one, but that's that because I thought you got 5 yards when you jammed, but they didn't give him the 5 yards. I think because as soon as he jammed them, they threw the flag on, and it was away from the play. There wasn't even play side. It was away from the play. They called holding on Derwin. He gave him a first down. So outside of that, if you really want to beat the team that you're looking to knock off and looking to take the throne from, you got to take it. They're not going to give it to you.
I want to just quickly address Ghostman's comment here. Ghostman, both a lesson in football and in life. you score as often and as early as you can, and we will leave that at that.
Some people, though,
and if you're gonna say 2, it's TOO.
The grammar police is out.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
grammar police.
It's one of those things too. To your point that you wanted to get a touchdown there because either it was a tie or a touchdown. So you looking at it from a perspective that you could go up 4 with a touchdown or tie it with 3. So I would much rather score the touchdown, and you got to take a touchdown when you get it. You can't expect to go 4 downs and get a touchdown on 4th down and take more clock off. You got to get a touchdown when you get it. So leaving him with a minute 45 wasn't ideal, but at some point you got to hope the defense gets to stop if you're in that situation.
I agree. So this comment here, I really actually think, I know it doesn't fully fit within the recap we're giving right now. However, I personally will put myself in this category.
Yeah, all
where
I did not. I said the Raiders. I said the Raiders was going to finish.
But seriously, I will absolutely own what I thought was going to happen, and this is I will defend my stance earlier in the season, but I will also give credit where credit's due, where I've seen Andy Reid adapt that I didn't think he was capable of adapting because he's never done it really in his career thus far to the extent that he has this season. Well, and that is Andy Reid has leaned heavily on the run game.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. He did the Chargers game. He did the Chargers game, not holistically.
I think the big adaptation is not forcing 10+ targets to Tyreek Hill on defense.
Sure.
And taking what the defense gives you more and moving the ball in a more sustainable and drawn out way rather than a quick 80-yard bomb to Tyreek and then defense is right back on the field.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually give more credit to Mahomes in this regard than I do Andy Reid. Andy Reid's an all-time great play caller. He's all-time great head coach. But the matriculation of Mahomes is what I was looking for. I said he's done it. Me. This moment for me told me that he's legit. He's as advertised.
It ain't no 1A, 1B between Mahomes and Herbert now.
That's true. It's 1 and 2. But I mean, yeah, I give you that. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is.
And actually, shoot, I had a never mind. I had a thought, but it was. I'll think of it again. Okay, I'll think of it again.
And Edward, unlike a lot of other folks that are on multiple podcasts, I am happy to be proven wrong. I am often proven wrong. However, there are other things that I am able to discern that others completely miss, and that's cool. That's what makes all of us different, but I have absolutely zero issues admitting where I read things the wrong way. And the Chiefs, I have been very surprised have been able to pivot so quickly this season because it is a pivot.
The scary thing to think is this was supposed to be
a pivot.
This is supposed to be a
pivot,
laid back year.
Pivot.
Yeah, but like I said, I give Mahomes a lot of credit. I was saying that was he a legit quarterback without Tyreek, and he's proven he is. So I definitely give him credit.
I agree.
I remember what it is. It seems to work very well in Miami as well, where you have a guy who has a somewhat of a noodle arm that gets to run around, throws it long, and either Tyreek Hill or Waddle. Is it Jeremy Waddle?
Jalen
Waddle.
I knew it was okay. Yeah, you have those two guys that just run nines in circuitous fashion, ins and outs and zigs, but basically a long 9 pattern with some zigs. Just throw it up, and one of those guys are going to get it. And that's why Miami is as good as they are this year. I knew I had a point, and that's what it was. And
so you're saying that
I think the question with that is if you put Tua on Kansas City, are they as effective as they are right now?
I would argue no, but that's just...
no.
Yeah, I don't think you need to argue anything.
Right. I think we all agree that
definitely not denying that Tyreek is a one of a kind.
He's a nuclear weapon. Let's just be real about it.
But the narrative going into this year was that Mahomes only did what he did up to this point because of Tyreek, and he's not going to be able to do the
Alex,
same stuff.
Alex, you need to look at this from this perspective. Tyreek is actually slower now than he was when he first entered the league.
Well, yeah.
He still looks like one of the
hell.
fastest players that's ever played the game today, and he's actually slowed down. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, when you got that level of speed and you get to a spot quicker than anybody else can get there, your offense opens up and it's a different way to defend it, or not defend it for that matter. So that definitely matters when you have 2-4-2 guys on the outside.
No, I agree, but my point is that when you saw Tyreek in this first 2, maybe 3 years in the NFL.
I mean, he didn't do much in those years, though.
No, that's not true.
I mean, compared him to his last 2 years in KC.
No,
not the same as his opening.
Tyreek in those 2 to 3 years was developing his route running.
Yeah.
But what was happening is that every so often, when it clicked for him in those 2 to 3 years, he had so much raw speed.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why
it was just off the charts when you watched how quick he was. I mean, he was making corners that could run the 4.2, 4.3s look like they were 4.7 guys.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
and he was doing that regularly. If you remember from his early years, he didn't do it very often, but every so often, there was always 1 or 2 plays a game where you watch Tyreek just go off on a play or two, and you're like, oh, well, if he can string those together, that's not fair. Right? Everyone said it. I said it. I'm sure all of us have said it a couple times watching him play.
Yeah.
And he started doing it, but then the problem is what the Chiefs weren't able to do was get him to the year 4 and 5 Tyreek in year 2 and 3. And either, don't get me wrong, he's still an absolutely elite level player, but he is still slower now than he was when he first entered the league. And even at this speed, he's still making guys look silly.
Yeah. I mean, he's just a one-of-a-kind athlete.
Yeah, he is.
He definitely does things that most other people or maybe nobody else ever in history could do.
Yeah, he's kind of like a one of one in terms of a receiver. He really is.
Body type.
Well, you got to think too. He wasn't really like a clear-cut receiver coming out of college. He was just like a gadget. You know, obviously a fast player that could do something electric with the ball. Nobody really knew what. Because I mean, his rookie year at KC, he was like a tweener, running back, and wide receiver. Like he would get sweeps, and I mean that would be like the planned touches they gave him, and then obviously progressed into what he is now. But
and that's coaching.
Yeah,
no, that's coaching, and that's what Andy Reid has done pretty much since day one in the NFL. Is he has taken guys and approached them and said, I want to make you look great.
He gets the most out of his guys. That's for sure.
And he absolutely.
And that's why Chiefs fans are like excited about Tony now, because like he could do that. And I mean, I guess you don't know how much of it was a wide receiver coach or someone else, but like that was kind of the prospect of getting Tony, is they could do a similar career path for someone like that, because he's got a very similar skill set.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, last week he gets hurt, and
right. That's
Tony is going to be an awesome piece as long as he stays healthy. That's the only thing.
He's got to stay healthy. And he got hurt early on, and
because he's a 4-3 guy too.
And, my stupid ass put him in a starting lineup in a few really hoping I'd reap from the benefits of the week before. But I bet if I didn't play him, he wouldn't have got hurt and would have gone off.
I agree, because I played him too, and I got a dud.
Here we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that was kind of the exciting thing.
So,
with,
guys, I want to pivot a little bit, and just because we're running up against Captain
pivot.
Sure. So we're running up against Captain's exit, and I'd like to get Captain's input on some of the other teams that we are coming up in week 12 against. Captain, I am going to look ahead to your game against the Seattle Seahawks And they are a very good team this year with their draft picks combined with some of the players they already had on their roster. With that in mind, I'm going to throw over to our first 3-point stance of this episode of the Wild Wild West. And this is the Seahawkers podcast with their 3 things that they need to do to beat your Las Vegas Raiders.
What's up, everybody? Adam here from the Seahawkers podcast, coming at you guys today with my 3 reasons or 3 things that the Seahawks need to do to beat the Las Vegas Raiders coming up here on Sunday. And the number one thing is to simply cover Davante Adams. Now, I know that sounds like a veiled shot at Broncos fans after the brutal loss here just this last week, but that wasn't my intention at all. It's really about our history as the Seahawks organization with their coverage schemes against Davante Adams. There's been years where we've gone up against the Packers. They have no weapons except for Adams, and yet we still fail to cover the guy. Part of it is he's extremely talented, no doubt about it. But also, too, our schemes have been utter crap. So let's make sure that we try to get Mike Jackson locked up on him as much as possible. I don't think they're going to run him up against Woolen very much. And, hey, if we can keep Kobe Bryant from covering him, will be all the better because he is very hit or miss in pass coverage. My number 2 thing the Seahawks need to do to ensure victory on Sunday against the Raiders is get out to a hot start. And this offense has been clicking pretty much all season, but especially early in the year, they were getting a lot of points early in games and getting on top of guys and really making it easy for the defense down the stretch. Now, these last couple games, the offense has been slow to start, much like we used to do under our former quarterback. And if they get out to a hot start, get the Raiders down by at least 10 points, then at that point, it's going to be hard for them to stick with the run game. And that's something that's super important for us going forward. And they can do that by getting to the short passing game early in this game rather than having Geno sit back there and take some sacks that have been killing drives early. My number 3 thing the Seahawks need to do to win against the Raiders this week, get back to playing 5-man fronts on defense. Last week against the Bucs, they went to a lot of 4-man fronts, and we got ran on constantly by one of the worst running teams in all of football. We do that again, it's curtains. Josh Jacobs is a heck of a player, and he's having a great season. So they need to get back to playing 5-man fronts like they had been since the defense had its resurgence here the previous 4 games. So with those 3 things, the Seahawks are sure to knock the Raiders down a peg. And if you guys are interested in what's going on with your former AFC West brethren, the Seahawks, we got lots of content at the Seahawkers podcast. You can check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts or YouTube or any of the platforms you can think of. And I think with that, there's only one thing left to say. Go Hawks.
Big sexy time in the chat today. We've made it.
Yeah.
Guys,
I was going to say I don't think it was on my page. Yeah, it wasn't on my YouTube. It was in the chat, so it wasn't me that time.
Yeah, we banned it. It's taken care of.
I guess when I stopped passing out the lollipops.
Also, Tito. Welcome, Tito.
Wow.
It's a little late.
A whole hour.
Tito, time.
Yeah.
Your team won too. Time. Come on.
Time. Yeah. But on a different note, guys, all of you who are here, we really appreciate you joining us live. Keep leaving questions and comments in the chat. We will do our very best to bring them up as we can and as often as we can. If you could also do us a huge favor after joining us live here, click the like button below. And for those of you who are on all of the other channels, if you want to go to the other channels and click that like button, what it'll really help us do is to grow the channel, grow our audience, and get more AFC West fans involved in the show, more awesome comments, and a lot of friendly banter. I mean, that's really the whole point of the show here, guys. So, Captain, over to you. Your take on the Seahawks game coming up.
Well, I actually got a little bit of that right as soon as he was going on. My phone's blowing up because I wild hair literally wild hair today. I was like, you know what? I want to go to this game, and I hadn't planned on it. So now I'm making last minute plans, and I think I got a ticket to the game. I think I got a place to crash, and as soon as if I get some airline tickets that are cheap, I will be in Seattle, and I hadn't planned on it. So that
hey.
Yeah,
big stacks Cap.
Big stacks Cap.
Just letting it go, baby.
Oh, you dollar bill.
Yeah, but
no, a place to go though. 12th man, like I've always wanted to go to a game of that field.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I said I hadn't planned on going because it was Thanksgiving weekend, and I thought, man, it's going to be expensive. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to miss an opportunity to go to Seattle if I can make it happen. And it looks like I might be able to do that. So it might not be raining. It literally will be raining this weekend against the Seahawks. But I hopefully it'll only be drizzling out of my wallet and checkbook. But getting back to point, obviously the Seahawks are great, and actually Ed Winchell alluded to it. The Seahawks are a better than average team this year, and they're showing it. When they let Russell Wilson go, who would have thought that Geno Smith would have come off the scrap heap and lead that team to I think they're 6-4, if I'm not mistaken, and they could actually have won a few more games because it's Seattle, and I want to go see Frazier. Okay, that's where I want to go to. I want to go to the fish market where they throw the fish and catch it. That's another thing too.
Pike's Market or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Pike's Market. Yeah, and I want to go to the original Starbucks, and I want to I want to do a lot of different things. So if I can make it happen, I will. But yeah, I also want to go see if the Raiders show up 2 games in a row because, and this is not a swipe at you, Richie. I know it's going to sound horrible, but when your 3 wins are against the worst team in the NFL and 2 against the Broncos, that's not saying a lot. Okay, and so I want to see if the Raider team that showed up in Kansas City and was 1 point away.
Triggered.
Yeah, your boy Hefe.
Whatever. If the Raider team that showed up in Kansas City and played well, can show up again in a area that'll be a tough game and will show what the team that we all are. And I will say we. Because I think everybody on this panel expected the Raiders to be an above 500 team by now, not a team that's 3-7. Okay, we all thought that, but they haven't played up to that. So I want to see if that team is going to show up. But I also want to see is if there is a continual ascension by a team that is playing for basically they're playing for their lives, not their playoff lives, but their lives as football players, because the players that are playing want to either play for a spot on the team next year or they know they're going to be gone. And that's a team that can be dangerous. So we'll see what happens as to who wants to play for Josh McDaniels, because he's going to be there next year. And maybe there will be guys on the team that are here that are not. So we'll see what happens. And again, the Raiders offense scored against the number 1 defense in the NFL this past Sunday, and they won. So it's a matter of if the Raiders defense, which is one of the worst in the NFL, can keep out a prolific at times offense that Seattle can have, it should be an entertaining game. And, again, I'm going to try to go to Seattle because how often do you get a chance to see your team play in Seattle? Well, obviously the answer is once every 8 years.
No, I think that's fair. And then the other thing that you have to remember is that Seattle's major acquisitions this offseason were the tackle positions. And the tackle positions for Seattle have been playing by and large incredibly well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Charles
I
Cross is a beast.
I don't disagree with Coach's comment there either. I actually think that Jacobs has been criminally underutilized by the Raiders overall this season, although I think in the last 3 games you've finally realized your mistakes and have given him the ball a little bit more. But
well, he was on a
think
3-game stretch. He was on a 3-game stretch where he had 140 yards.
Yeah. He
plus
he
3 games in a row,
they
which
just
is the
stopped giving him
Raiders'
the ball.
record. Yeah, which is the Raiders' record. But they gave him enough of the ball last week to play to be a competent outcome with the game. In fact, I tell you, Josh is full of himself in a good way this year, because when he was going off the field, okay, he was waving to the Denver crowd. He was just like Adams waved to the Denver crowd when he got that touchdown. Okay,
yeah, I thought they did that too. I thought I saw that.
Yeah, Adams waved to him. Josh Jacobs waved to him, because he's in the moment, and he knows that this is.
Look, I have no problem with the players being in the moment, but what I would love to have seen from Adams is a bit of humility in that game when he was locked down by a player who has been in the league much fewer years than him for the vast majority of the game. And he did very well on that last play. So credit where credit's due. But Surtain traveled with Adams, and by and large, until the times where Adams was in the slot, which Surtain, they don't put him in the slot, they want him on the boundaries because he's a superior, dare I say, even elite boundary corner. The end result is that Adams was typically or generally locked down when he was anywhere else except for that one play, for the most part, considering how he's been able to typically dominate other games. But looking at what I think the Raiders need to do against the Seahawks, and Coach, curious as to your comments from here, which is the Raiders showed that they still have some of their pass rushers, particularly on the outside, to kind of guard in terms of the sliding scale across the offensive line against the Broncos. I think that's the key to the Raiders winning, is continuing to get pressure up the middle on the Seahawks, because I think Geno struggles when he's pressured regularly like that, and he's had the benefit of a very good offensive line, generally speaking, this season. If the Raiders can exploit certain weaknesses on that line, I think that's their key. What are your thoughts?
Maybe, Coach, before you do that, and this is definitely a swipe at Coach, because it was easy. And I didn't see it because I was at the game. But people that watched the game said that there was a certain Raiders defensive tackle that just played out of his mind against the Broncos.
He did nothing.
No.
What did he do in that game? Please tell me.
And I looked at it as well. In the stat sheet, it was nothing.
Exactly.
But he locked. Okay. But what he did do was he locked up the middle and made Max Crosby the force that he was at that game.
He
and
locked
that
up
is
the middle?
Yes.
Okay.
He took on the blockers in front of him and had like one or two guys that had to take care of him, and made Crosby the presence that he was.
No,
and
you're
Coach,
talking about a pass rush.
Coach, I didn't see it because I was at the game. No, well, that's because you don't like Jerry Tillery, and I get it. But what I'm saying is it was pointed out to me because I didn't watch the game. I watched the game. That's what I'm saying. They said he had a remarkable game, blogging and clogging up the middle so that Crosby could be a force on the outside. And if that's what he was supposed to do, him and Bilal Nichols played what they needed to do in the middle, playing the best that they could in that front, and it allowed Crosby to be the menace that he was, along with some of the D-backs that came in on blitzes. I'm just saying that. And again, Coach, I didn't see it because I didn't watch the game on TV. I couldn't see what was in front of me because I didn't see the close-up view. I'm just letting you know.
from the vantage point. But yet again, that I feel like that's just them wanting to be able to win the argument that Tillery is actually being on the Raiders is actually good, and he's not. I mean, he's not an elite run defender at all. He's horrible at the run defense, and he's mediocre at pass rushing. He really is. I mean, it is what it is. You know, if him being a distraction so Crosby can be freed up, then okay, anybody in the league can do that. I can swat and
draft someone in the first round to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Draft him in the first round to be a distraction instead of being a force.
But you know what? We didn't draft him in the first round, so we didn't make that mistake. But we got him on waivers.
Well, yeah, I got a laundry list of first round mistakes you already have to deal with. So that's another conversation.
So I'll take a first round bust from somebody else that actually works, and let our first round bust speak for themselves.
Did he really work by being a fly for it, so people can pay attention to him, so they can Max Crosby can get a one-on-one matchup out. Okay. If that's what you call being,
I'm just saying, Coach, I'm not saying this to piss you off. I'm saying it was brought to my attention from people that actually watch the X's and O's of the game that he made a hellacious effort in the middle of the Raiders defense. Now, it's not what you wanted. Chandler Jones is not what we wanted this year doing what he does, but I'm going to give the guy credit when he is used effectively and does the job. Okay? Chandler Jones is so lost, he's not even on a effing milk carton anymore. But Jerry Tillery, in his very first game, made an effort, and it was a good effort in what he was asked to do.
So, Captain, the only thing I'm going to make a comment on that is our left guard is likely not going to be back next year. Our offensive center is an upgrade over our starting offensive center, but that's not saying much, because our starting offensive center is ranked like 36th in all of the NFL. So
you play who you play on the schedule.
Look, I am one of the least biased Broncos fans that perhaps exists on the face of planet Earth. And at the end of the day, you're not wrong that you play who you play, but if you're trying to showcase a player you're trying to showcase a player to have been a difference maker in a game. My only point is he may have been a difference maker in the Broncos game, but your competition matters. And my point, and this is my only point, is you're playing against an average offensive center, a subpar left guard, and a decent right guard. But since he's in the middle, he's likely going dead on against the center. And our offensive center is a second string offensive center at the NFL level who is mediocre at best. And that needs to be factored into the conversation here. Now,
so
if you go up
against mediocre, that's he was effective. Okay.
So
okay, you know what? I won't say another effing word the rest of the time because I was just trying to make a point that the guy came in off the street and played effectively.
I just find it funny that people would tell you that to kind of feature that information because again, they want to be right about the idea that he was not a bust. When in all likelihood he is. And I don't think he will be back with your team next year, to be honest with you. But
Coach, I don't agree with that either.
You think he'll be back?
I do, and so this is my point: is I don't disagree with what Captain is trying to get at. I just think that you need to see game over game of a player improving or showing progress and growth. And my point is the Seahawks have a better offensive line than the Denver Broncos do.
Okay, and we will see this week if there is a continued ascension.
Correct.
Or if he goes back to sucking like he played with the Chargers.
Correct.
I have one game film in front of me, and it wasn't even in front of me. It was brought to my attention. I was surprised because I didn't see it. I was watching the game. You understand the difference there?
I do.
My point ultimately is that a game, what we need to see from Tillery is the either stepped improvement or at minimum an even keel improvement, because what you saw against the Broncos was an improvement from when he was on the Chargers. And if that's the case, then what you've ultimately seen, and Captain, to your point, is he fits your system and scheme better than he fit the Chargers, because the Chargers were looking for more out of him than he could provide the Chargers. And the Raiders are not looking for as much out of him as the Chargers were, and he fits their scheme better. And that's fair enough. Everyone has certain strengths and weaknesses, and if the Raiders can capitalize on Tillery's, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was a reach to begin with, and we also ran a different style of defense when he got drafted. We're more 4-3 based than we are now. We're more 34 based. So, I mean, he was already an odd scheme fit to begin with, and the idea that he was really just going to be a pass rushing specialist for Staley's off defense, then he really didn't work out in that regard, and that's probably why he got released, in my opinion. But again, I mean, I'm not damning you, Cap, for saying that. I'm just pointing the finger at the people that told you that, because again, they just want to be right by the pickup. You know, you get a guy off the street, you want him to be good. So I mean, naturally, that's what they're going to say, that they're going to try to find a silver lining in whatever he did or didn't do well, and say that, okay, yeah, he's improving, or he's a project. We can work with him. We can do this. We can do that. Then that's fine. But yet again, I mean, I've had 3.5 years of film on him to say that he's not as advertised. He's not a first round talent.
Right. Well, I also know that when Nnamdi Asomugha played for the Raiders, he was an all-pro cornerback. But the minute he goes to the Eagles, he sucks. He sucks like a blonde whore at a fish market chasing guys with $5 bills. Okay. All I'm saying is that scheme does matter. Okay. Well, I'm just saying. Well, he's not on my nerves there. I just was giving praise to a guy that we picked up that actually had a good game, and I was saying, hey, hopefully this works out for us.
He had a great game against the Broncos. He had a great game. He had a great game against the Broncos. You know what?
He did.
He did. He had a great game against the Broncos, and he was actually better than Nichols was in the middle of the field in the first game that you guys played the Broncos, and I think he was a difference maker, because he actually prevented a lot of runs that were up the middle that were otherwise successful. But I think that in order to someone to be a staple on any team, you want to start seeing those games stacked one on top of the other, where that player can play consistency at that level. That was my only point. But I do want to.
You guys can tell me about it. You guys can tell me about it, because if all goes as planned, I will be at this game, and I will again record a game that I haven't seen. Maybe at the end of the year, I'll actually go back and see all of the different things that I'd like to see. But again, I got to go. And again, I wasn't trying to be an ass. I was just actually giving some props to a guy that picked up and for one game played what we needed him to do.
I agree.
Fair enough.
I agree.
Agree to disagree.
No, Coach, in fairness, Tillery did exactly what he was meant to do for the Raiders in that game against the Broncos. And he ate a block that he needed to, which was all the Raiders needed him to do.
Well, he ate a lot of blocks in the Chargers too. It just was never effective or made any plays for us. That's all.
No, I agree, but I don't think the Raiders were looking for that of him. I think what they were looking for was Tillery to keep busy the offensive center, to expose the guards. And in my opinion, I think that he did that. And I think that's why you saw the success in the Broncos game that we saw. Now, the question is going to be, does that mindset, mentality, approach, scheme fit, whatever the case may be, does that translate into the game against the Seahawks? Do the Seahawks have the same vulnerabilities that the Broncos have? And we're going to see that coming up this Sunday with the Raiders versus Seahawks in terms of Does Tillery provide the same boost to the Raiders' interior line that we saw against the Broncos? We're going to see all of that come out this Sunday. And if the Raiders have found Tillery's fit and have the other players around him that can make up the difference, then he's just a better scheme for the Raiders. And that's an absolute fair comment to make for any player. And funnily enough, it's a very New England thing to do, is to find a guy that fits a certain spot, but then look at and assess the other players to know that they fill the other things that player does not kind of fit in with, right? And the reason why I say New England is because a good portion of the Raiders front office and coaching staff are now from the New England model. And so I think Tillery is yet another one of those types of players that the New England staff there see as a great fit for their team. Again, just my opinion for what it's worth.
And final comment before I leave, actually, it's old school Raiders taking cast-offs, rejects from other teams in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, putting them to use where they fit and made great players out of them. That's even before the quote-unquote Patriot way. Guys, I got to go. It's been fun again.
Captain, super fast on that note. Do you think that's why Mark Davis, probably with influence over his mother who actually owns the team, but do you think that's why Mark Davis appreciates the New England way, if you will, because his dad did the same type of thing and it worked? Do you think that may be why he kind of appreciates that kind of mental mindset?
Actually, I don't think Mark Davis knows anything about football other than maybe how to spell it. And that is an indictment on Mark Davis, because Mark Davis was kept away from the team by his father for a reason. And I have no problem saying that. And in spite of what's going on, I think that maybe when McDaniels came in and gave him a song and dance and pony show and he ate it up, it's because he's very naive and to what is great. Okay. And then he said, okay, well, McDaniels is coming from that staff that's won 7 Super Bowls. And he's been the offensive signal caller for that staff that's won 7 Super Bowls, I believe.
I think it's 6.
Six. Sorry. I keep forgetting that Freak Boy won one here. Is that he got sold a bill of goods, and we will see if that ultimately it was a good buy or not. I don't.
Sure.
To answer your question, Richie, I think it was he got somebody off the hot commodities market that he think will do the job.
Fair enough. My only point is that there seems to be some synergy between Al Davis's methodologies and the Patriot way. Maybe not exactly, but certainly, a few elements of it that mesh and match. And that was again my only comment.
Yeah, I can see that. And I wasn't trying to blow you out of the water either. I'm just saying that that's my impression of Mark Davis.
Yeah, fair enough. I appreciate it. NFL Nation Live after the Wild Wild West. We are going to jump into the other 3 games for the AFC West here for you guys.
Take care, everybody.
The like button is down below. Please go ahead and tick that across the videos on all platforms. Coach, I want to jump into you now with all of the Chargers folks here and all our fans of the show. Sadly or unfortunately, there was some major Cardinals news that came out that took away all of our Cardinals contacts.
Yeah.
Who wanted to do? They actually wanted
messing around in Mexico, man.
Apparently, there was some, let's just say probably more than Cinco Cervezas that were taking place in Mexico.
Yeah.
And some activities that were unbecoming of the team, I would imagine, that took place. One of their coaches was fired literally on the spot on game day and sent home. All of our 3-point stance folks that were going to come on had to pivot our contact of the show is one of the primary beat reporters for the Cardinals in Bo Brack. I wanted to give him credit where credit's due. He apologized profusely, and I mean, I have like text us, for saying, "I'm sorry, man, I can't do it because there's this massive news coming out." I want to give Bo absolute credit for being just on the ball and communicative to us, and truly being an ally of our show and someone who is willing to come on and give you excellent Cardinals content with regards to for the AFC West folks here. With that in mind, Coach, though, we don't have anyone for you to bounce anything off of.
Right.
What do you think you need to do against the Cardinals to come out as with a win?
Well, I mean, being as a complete and utter poop show over there right now, you would like to believe that not necessarily should completely focus on playing football, but I did see the day that Kyler's going to likely play in the game. He's been out 2 weeks with a hamstring. Yes. So that's that must be a fantasy move for you there, Alex. That's why you got your so that is and I guess it's funny that people seem to get healthy against us. Like every time people out for weeks, all of a sudden they come and they're healthy to play us, right? The whole 49ers team was healthy for the first time all year playing us, right? So, I would say that's a concern, with him being healthy. Now, question is, how good is that hamstring? Because my biggest issue with him, my biggest problem is his ability to scramble. He gives a lot of people fits, and we especially have problems with mobile quarterbacks. So that particular aspect of it, we have to keep him, I guess you can say, corralled in the pocket, and make him make throws down the field. One, we have to bracket DeAndre Hopkins too. And I'm not overly concerned about their run game, but just like everybody else knows, we have issues stopping the run. So I'm sure they're going to try it. So I think the biggest thing we need to do, we have to do, is make them give up on it early, be stout against it early, and make them give up on it, and be exclusively one-dimensional. And that would allow us to, be able to scheme and call plays defensively that will lean into the idea that we can take the ball away, either in punt or turnover. And if we do those things, I think we'll be fine defensively. Offensively, I'm not sure. I'm leaning against the idea that Mike may or may not play. He was supposed to practice today, but he didn't end up not practicing, ironically. So I guess his ankle wasn't feeling up to it. So we got one more practice here. I'm not sure if they're going to practice tomorrow because it's actually Thanksgiving or not. But Friday will probably be the telltale sign whether or not he's actually going to try to give it a go. Hopefully we can ramp up Keenan's activity, which will allow us to have a legit threat on the outside. So I think
that's a participant today. So
yeah, right. So I think if he gives a full, somewhat, give me 80% of a workload, then I like our chances in a pass game. Gerald Everett's supposed to come back off his growing. So I've been praying and hoping and wishing that they would lean more into the run game, and especially in the interior side. So in Arizona's defense, run defense isn't the best in the world. So I think that if you spend some time on that and lean into it and make it a part of your game plan for the entire game, not just part of it, then I like our chances. Because like I said, the distractions, college is coming back, being off 2 weeks, hadn't been really running any office or practicing. And the idea that they, like I said, they just got a lot of turmoil in-house. I would like to believe that, we should win the game. But typical Chargers, fashion is that they somehow always make it a competitive game or make it a more troubling game than it should be. But if we handle business like we did against the Chiefs for 3.5 quarters, I think we'll win.
Yeah. I don't really see any way they lose unless they lose it themselves.
That's the only thing that we're our worst enemy in certain regards in that fashion. But I will give us credit that we haven't had as much of that this year as in years past.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's changing. Slowly but surely, hopefully that's changing. But yet again, you always got to worry about that rear end, his ugly head.
Well, and I just think if you have Keenan Allen back, just some resemblance of full force passing attack. Arizona's secondary is really not that good.
Right.
I mean, outside of Budda Baker, but you can
work around that. Yeah, him and Isaiah Simmons are their playmakers. So outside of that, I think we'll be okay. Like I said, but again, we always make things more difficult, and we're more reactionary than proactive. So we'll let them hang around in the weeds and somehow or another generate some offense, and all of a sudden we're in a tight game. So if we can avoid that by any means, then I think we'll win a game and it should be a bounce back game for us because we lost 2 tough ones in a row. So I think that we need this game here.
How have you guys done against mobile quarterback?
Well, I mean, luckily because I actually go back to last year. Lamar Jackson tore us up. Like, he was a big problem. Now, we were flat in that game on top of the idea that, playing in Baltimore early game on the East Coast, it was just rough for us from a jet lag perspective. But on top of that, Lamar tore us up. Like, he literally tore us up from his dad perspective. Mahomes gives us issues all the time. Just trying to think back real quick about the mobile quarterbacks we may have faced this year. They didn't really run. We played the Broncos for time. Russell didn't run a whole lot in that game, I don't believe. But overall, that I think that for some reason that containing the quarterback and keeping discipline wrestling has been an issue for us. We just kamikaze trying to get to the quarterback by any means, and they slip out of the pocket a lot and get a lot of yardage. And lo and behold, we're likely in man coverage, so the defense got their backs turned, so they're not looking. So he gets 10, 12, 15 yards down the field, and they've got a first down. So that's been an issue for us. So, if Kyler feels healthy enough to run with that hamstring, then that could be a threat for us. But if he doesn't, he kind of gives me the Rams Kyler when he didn't run at all in the playoffs. I'll take that. I'll take that Kyler. Let him say, I'm not going to risk, tearing my hamstring anymore and stay in the pocket. Then I like our chances.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler's a special talent.
He's super fast. I mean, the kid.
He is.
I've seen somebody
also kind of a POS, though.
No, but he is.
Yeah.
He is.
Like he's losing his teammates a little bit. It seems like it.
He's so much faster than most of the quarterbacks, though, that he can really present a true challenge in the run game as being. Oh God, I can't believe I had hiccups. This is ridiculous.
Oh wow.
And what?
He's scary, trying to scare you to get him away.
I don't think I get scared at all. I just have to freaking pound my chest and stop him. But Kyler is so fast that he's such a unique talent.
Yeah. If you let him get loose on
Raiders game. He ran around for like 22 seconds.
Yeah, Tyler with a cell phone. That's him.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think if you have Khalil Mack, like you'd be able to contain him a little more than some other teams would.
Their
tackles aren't that great.
No, they're not. But that's the issue. Our rush lanes, we don't stay disciplined in our rush lanes. If we box them in and don't let them leak out or get off the edge, then we're fine. But that's something we have to work on. It's not something we do well. That's my only concern.
I agree. So I'm gonna throw over. Oh God, this is so annoying. I'm gonna throw over to the Panthers game against the Broncos and go right into it. This is a really, really interesting game for the Broncos. In my opinion, this is really going to define whether or not Kubiak has kind of found an answer, or whether or not we are basically just in a downward spiral.
Well, you do got Sam Darnold playing, so that's
a plus.
Look,
I'm actually considering playing the Broncos defense this week just for that express purpose.
This is not a Ghostbusters episode, and we are going to go over to the C3 podcast for their 3-point stance.
Tony Dunn here with the C3 Panthers podcast, and the Panthers hosting the Denver Broncos. First things first, if you're on the East Coast, folks, this game will be on CBS. Every other game we got is on Fox. This one, anytime we play an AFC team, it's on CBS. I've learned the hard way. I brought the signs in prepared to get Fox on the logo. Didn't happen. CBS is where it's at. 3-point stance, 3 things that the Carolina Panthers need to do to beat the Denver Broncos. One, this is kind of a mirror image bowl. It's like who wants to lose or who wants to win the most, and no one wants to win at all. The Carolina Panthers have been terrible all season long. We've tried to find bright spots. We've tried to find things to be excited about this team. We thought we had talent, but it's just been a disaster. Nothing has come together. So the only thing going for the Carolina Panthers at this point is that we are an every other week team, and that is we play 1 week okay, 1 week terribly. We were terrible against the Baltimore Ravens. So watch out, Denver Broncos. We're still going to be terrible this week. 3 things the Carolina Panthers need to do. Number 1, don't beat ourselves. Bad teams beat themselves. In fact, I'm surprised you guys are even interested in what I have to say about the Carolina Panthers, because we know that our teams are our biggest enemies. At least that's what it looks like for the Denver Broncos, and that's what it's been for the Carolina Panthers. Right now, we're on our 3rd starting quarterback of the season. Baker Mayfield has been benched by P.J. Walker, or benched and replaced by P.J. Walker, and now Sam Darnold. So the Carolina Panthers have to come out there and actually do something good on the offensive side of the ball. The defense has been up and down, but that is number 1, is don't beat yourself. And it really has nothing to do with the opponent at this point, because the opponent could be bad, they could be good, and it still doesn't matter. The second thing the Carolina Panthers have to do is run the football. That's the only thing that's helped us in this season to do well. Deontay Foreman has put up something like 270 yards through 2 games. Falcons twice. I mean, I guess that makes it easy. I mean, as out of 2 out of 3 games, he had over 150 yards. So Deontay Foreman's great every other game, just like the Carolina Panthers offense somehow learns how to run the football every other game. Number 2, or I guess no, this is number 3. Final point of the 3-point stance. Surprise him with Sammy D. Sammy Darnold Dimes. Sammy Dime Darnold? Who knows? This guy, we hated him last year, but right now he seems like a tremendous upgrade over Baker, the bum, and whatever disaster else has been around. Sam Darnold has come off of IR. He has been kind of ready to go for at least a week. And after Baker Mayfield's miserable performance last week, think about this, the Carolina Panthers have had a quarterback that's had a 17 quarterback rating and a 0 quarterback rating. How can Sam Darnold be worse? That's what we've been asking ourselves, but somehow, some way, it's possible he can find a way to be worse. I don't know. We've all wondered what Sam Darnold would look like behind a decent offensive line, and the Panthers have their best offensive line they've had all year. So right now, I think I'm not worried about the Denver Broncos, and it's not meaning to be an insult. We're worried about our own team and how bad we've been. So, look, I would say keep Russell from cooking. I'm from North Carolina. Hated the dude when he went to NC State. Kind of happy that it's like panning out in the wrong way for you guys. But right now, this is about the Carolina Panthers trying to find themselves, trying to find some sort of rhythm, specifically on offense. The Panthers defense did really well against the Baltimore Ravens last week, but the offense just didn't do anything. So those are my 3 points. Number 1, don't beat yourself. Number 2, run the football. Deontay Foreman, come on, 150 yards. That's what it's going to take. And surprise him with Sammy D. My name's Tony Dunn. It's the C3 Panthers podcast. Look, we've got a live post-game show directly after the game. We'd love for you guys to come in and get in the comments, whether win, lose, or make fun. We're here every week, and the season's gotten long and tough. So, hey, a fresh face, a little egg on your face, my face, who cares? We'll see you on Sunday. Best of luck, just not this week.
He was great.
Oh, yeah.
He was
What
great.
Personality. And
Yeah, he was
honestly, an objectively, maybe painfully objectively honest Panthers fans.
Yeah, I know that hurt him to say all that. It really did.
There was a piece of him as part of that recording that I think died inside as he recorded that.
Absolutely.
So, aside from our great guest there who gave us some great points, I really think that the key to the Broncos game here is going to be, oh God, this is going to freaking piss me off. I think our offense. I think our defense have already proven themselves this year as being the potential to be elite. And I think as you look forward and look ahead to this game, it's up to our offense to, turn the volume up, to really do some of the things that we haven't been able to do. And if I'm going to give my counters to that, that's going to be running the ball. I think the Broncos have not really had sustainable runs and have not focused on running the ball enough. And I think that's going to be one of our major keys to counter all of those things that he just said. I think that when you look to the Broncos game here, Marlon Mack being called up from the practice squad, I think Latavius Murray now being our primary back, which if you had told me Latavius Murray was our primary back coming into the season, I would have told you you're drunk. Right. But, Gordon's cut. Mack has been called up. We have
Murray got hurt. Edmonds got hurt.
All right.
Edmonds is hurt. Gordon cut. Murray primary back. I think Azigbo will be called up from the practice squad as maybe even a 53-man roster guy. He is we have a really fascinating running back room with the Broncos, and funnily enough, that's really been what the Broncos have been known for is finding just incredible running backs in just like wonky spots. You know what I mean? Like the Broncos over our tenure and just over our history have gotten undrafted free agent running backs that have been all pros or Pro Bowlers, Super Bowl MVPs, other things, Hall of Famers, whatever the case may be. We have really found diamonds in the rough as it pertains to running backs. CJ Anderson is my guy. Just for the record, I want that on tape. He is that one guy that, undrafted free agent and just really overcame all those hurdles at every turn. And I think that's
y'all had a long run of running back, starting with Terrell Davis. There were like low end, like got cast off or guys nobody knew about that somehow or another were like, super effective in the Denver system. Like
that were amazing. Amazing.
Clinton Portis, Terrell Davis, Olandis Gary, CJ Anderson,
Sean Moreno for 1 year.
I was just great to say Sean Moreno. I was just great to say that. Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, those guys
Lindsey for like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. We had a whole year. Lindsey had a whole year. It was good for the Broncos. So yeah, y'all have an uncanny ability to find.
Lindsey had 2,000 yards. So Lindsey was a undrafted free agent rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Made the 53-man roster and had 2 consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons.
See?
And then they cut ties.
And then we cut ties because
we did with Gordon.
because we're the Broncos, right? And that's just what we do. But to your point, this is exactly it. Is that in my opinion, the running game is going to be the difference maker. It's not. I actually think that's going to be the big thing. Russell Wilson has always done better when he's had a solid running game.
So let me see if Marlon Mack is on free agency for fantasy. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
I picked him up. I picked him up in the league already. Don't worry.
And so Marlon Mack was just recently called up. So that means Latavius Murray and Marlon Mack are now kind of the 1-2 punch.
Yep.
And Coach, if you're looking for a true fantasy guy, Latavius Murray would be the one to go for.
I tried. I looked at all 3 leagues. He's not available. I tried.
He is. So I am very close with a good portion of the main core of the Denver Broncos media folks, and every single person that has said anything about Murray has said one thing. The dude is massive. Like most running backs are kind of short and kind of stocky. And the general consensus on Murray is that
he's like 6'2", isn't he? Is he tall?
Yeah. Like the general consensus on Murray is that he's just a mammoth of a man.
Yeah, he's like a smaller version of Derrick Henry.
He's been around for a while, so
and
durable enough.
And again, to kind of tie back into the Raiders game, you saw what he was able to do. He just punched it right through the end, like right into the red zone. He just said, like, we're good. And that's partially because we ran under center, which Kubiak likes to run, and he ran the proper kind of zone blocking scheme and stuff in that play, which opened up the run game, and Murray was coached, and so on and so forth. So that was a good thing. But I actually think what we're going to see from the Broncos this game is perhaps a bit more of a development of that outside zone run scheme. Again, as I said earlier in the show here, really showcasing a Kubiak run style scheme here. And I think that's going to be what you're going to see guys like Mac break out again, show those types of long runs that you're used to seeing from him. I think guys like Murray are going to show that, he hasn't really lost it. He just needs to be put into the right system. And I also think you're going to see Devine Ezigbo get called up again as a running back for the Denver Broncos. And I mean, if you saw him at all in preseason, he's got the skills. And as long as he's put in the right scheme with the right fit, with the proper blocking, he can absolutely kill opposing defenses. Because again, he's kind of one of those kind of Melvin Gordon size running backs. That kind of 6'1", 225, 230 kind of guy. And once you get into that size and they can run and actually have some burst and speed, which Ezigbo has, that's dangerous. Because as soon as he hits a safety, the safety is just on their back. Especially if they're trying to tackle him alone.
Yeah, assuming you can hang on to the ball, that was Melvin Gordon's problem.
No, Ezigbo doesn't have that problem at all.
No, I agree. Like I said, if you can do that and not have to worry about ball security, then that's definitely a better situation to have.
Right, because he'll just bulldoze guys, right?
Oh yeah, all day.
Yeah. And so my key to our game here is we need that running game back. We need that fire. We need that grit that the Broncos are used to having. Frankly, the reason why the Broncos have been, up until recent years, feared in the NFL is a run game. We've always had a good run game, always. And we got to get back to that. And when you play half your season at Mile High Stadium, having a run game wears down the defense and frankly just gasses them. They just can't take the thin air.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are, whether it be the Chiefs that are used to it or the Chargers or the Raiders, it's one thing to say we train for it. It's another thing to be in it. And the Broncos train in it and play in it. And because we have so much, I almost see it as an unfair advantage in some regards because you can't fake thin air.
No, not at all.
You just can't fake it. And so I think the Broncos have a massive advantage by practicing in the conditions we do, because then we go to like any other stadium. And I mean, I don't care what stadium. And no matter what, there's always more oxygen in the air than Mile High.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's just a fact. So we're always in a sound and frankly, advantageous situation given the conditions that we are regularly practicing and playing in. So I think that's a good thing. The other thing that I would like to see is I'd like to see more flanking tight ends. And I've said this, 4 or 5 shows, guys. I'm sick of saying the same crap.
Yes, 21 and 22 personnel all day.
Look, I am a rugby player. I am used to hitting people at full speed with no pads. I believe in the aggressive elements of the football game. I also come from a family of leatherheads, as in, the fact that there's plastic helmets is unfortunate from my family's perspective. Because we would much rather just play without helmets at all. That's just kind of what my background is. CTE is a thing, but it doesn't affect my family because I've played through it with multiple generations and we're fine. So we just think things differently. And as a result of all that, we're looking at kind of what's happening right now in contact sports. And my perspective is very similar to that, which is, you're playing a contact sport, so let's play contact sports. And that's just kind of like my family's mentality. And so I'd like to see the Broncos get back to that gritty style of football, that gritty style of offense. And one of the ways of going about that is flanking a weak tackles on the Broncos because of injury with tight ends to bolster your blocking capabilities. But then you also get to mix that up by having those tight ends interchange in terms of who's going to run and be a pass catcher at any given moment, which really forces your opponent to guess and or cover more of the field. And I think that opens up a lot more in terms of your play calling, your play options, and frankly, your success on the field. And you can start grinding down the field more when you play that way. And I believe personally, for what it's worth, that that's the Broncos' only hope at really winning the vast majority of our games at the end of the season with all the injuries we have in the field.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that, with this quarterback carousel they got in Carolina, then the odds are in your favor for sure. You just can't, much like us, you can't get in your own way. You definitely got to stay on schedule and, not leave them hanging around, because even bad teams can, give you a run for your money if you leave them in the game. So
he was talking about Foreman running too, but
oh yeah,
I don't think he's going to be as effective as I would like him to be. I invested in Foreman in a few leagues, so I'd be cool if he did. But let's be real, Broncos defense is what it is.
Yeah. Only person that has success in the run game against them is Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, some reason. Literally the only reason, as an outsider looking in, the Broncos are in the situation they're in is because they cannot score points. That's what it boils down to. Their defense, gives up 18 points a game?
No, less than that.
So was it then 16 or something?
We're at 16.3 points a game or something like that.
Any defense in the NFL that averages giving up that, you would think would be part of a substantially successful team. So
right.
If you give up 16 point something points a game, you expect to be 9-1.
Yeah,
Agreed.
You know what I mean? That's if you give up,
especially in today's NFL, that's very offensive leaning friendly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you have a defense that can lock guys down like that, and Coach, that was a direct reference.
Appreciate that.
If you can lock down other teams like that, my gosh, you better be in the top echelon of the league, and really all that shows. And Coach, this kind of goes back to your previous comments about the play calling and the coordinators and the coaches and that kind of stuff. This is my problem, is that the coaches can call the plays, but it's on to the players to execute them.
Oh, absolutely.
And ultimately, if the quarterback doesn't throw a wide open wide receiver the ball, you're screwed.
Yeah. True too.
I'm sorry, it's just a fact. Let's just call it what it is, right? And we've seen, as a Broncos fan, I've seen that too many times this season, and that's not on the coaches. That's on our quarterback for not throwing that receiver. And moreover, to add on to we'll call it add insult to injury in this case here, is that's one of the reasons why any team goes after a veteran quarterback like the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, is that you expect those types of plays to be made.
Sure.
And they have not been.
Yeah.
So last but not least, Alex, I'd like to throw over to you and go into the 3-point stance with the Rams.
Yeah.
Hey,
First the Lambs.
First goes last.
Yeah, right. There we go. That's fair. I'll take that.
Look, this is a softball. Let's just be honest, all right?
Hey, everybody. This is Mark from Rams Up, the LA Rams Up podcast, part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. You can find us. Our YouTube handle is at LA Rams Up. We do 2 podcasts a week, a preview and a recap, and throw in some other stuff once in a while. The Rams offense comes in horrible condition. They could be playing their 4th left tackle. They've already played their fourth left guard and their fourth right guard, and they've played 3 different guys at center. They can't get anything going as far as the run game. They do have a new young running back named Kyron Williams. It's pretty exciting. He's a guy to keep an eye on, hoping that he can maybe get a couple of explosive plays. Cooper Kupp is out. Matthew Stafford, another concussion, or possibly anyways, so he may not play. So what can you expect of this Rams offense? I think it would be a good day if they could just put 2 drives together that result in touchdowns. 7 points in the first half, 7 points in the second half. I would be happy. I don't know, especially if Stafford's not playing, if they can hope for a lot more than that, as sad as that is. Special teams wise, they have a guy on their special teams, Brandon Powell, the punt and kick returner, who has been getting very close to breaking it. You won't need Ram fans that don't love Brandon Powell. He plays with passion, with anger, and he's come pretty close a couple times. We need a big play from our special teams to hang with the Chiefs in this one. It's not going to be our offense, that's for sure. But like I said, hopefully get a couple touchdowns out of them. But if we could get a big play from our special teams, a punt return like Brandon Powell would be our best bet. And it could happen. And we need that to happen to have a chance in Kansas City against the Chiefs. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, this team they actually play pretty well. They got studs at every level. Aaron Donald, Jalen, Bobby Wagner. But they've been playing this bend but don't break style, which I think makes sense if you want to try to shorten the game, make teams put together 12, 14 play drives and hold them to a field goal. Don't give up a lot of big plays, although they did last week to Chris Olave. They generally do bend and don't break. But the problem is we haven't had a takeaway in weeks. It was against Carolina, I want to say 4 or 5 games ago. We need some takeaways. This defense has been playing really well, but just no takeaways. And they need takeaways to help out their offense here. And 1 or 2 takeaways are really, this defense has to get that done. It's just amazing how it's gone in that guard this year. Every time the ball's on the ground, every time the other team puts the ball on the ground, it bounces right back up to their tight end or their running back or an offensive lineman. We can't buy a takeaway if this team's life depended on it, and that's got to change against Kansas City. We need something to happen. Bend but don't break, that's fine. Need a couple takeaways. Need Patrick Mahomes to make a couple mistakes. And so what I'm talking about here is it's kind of a long shot. A couple touchdowns from our offense, a touchdown from special teams, a couple of takeaways from our defense, maybe a splash play, a pick six. That's what it's going to take because this offense has been just kind of putrid, really, to be honest with you. It's been been very disappointing. This is not a team that can execute the Sean McVay wants them to. And like I said, again, Matthew Stafford may be out. I'm not sure who the backup would be, John Wolford or Bryce Perkins. Perkins is a runner. If he plays, a lot of read options. Try to find a way to get down the field and get a couple of touchdowns, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. That's about it. Hopefully that helps you enjoy what this gives you an idea what this Rams Chiefs game might look like from a Rams fan's perspective. That's all I got. Hope that helps.
So,
yeah, I mean, he at least was an objective Rams fan. And obviously the news has come out since he probably recorded that Stafford's not playing.
Right.
So going to see Bryce Perkins, who, is a mobile running quarterback, but, he went in last week against the Saints and didn't look all that well. I mean, the biggest issue is whoever you put back there, they don't have a line to block for him. So, I think they were giving up like 33 sacks this year or something wild like that. And it's not entirely healthy Rams offensive line. And he's going against the Chiefs front that's had 10 sacks in the last 2 games, and Chris Jones has kind of been going off. So I imagine I don't see how they don't keep that progression going against this Rams team, especially without Stafford, without Cooper Kupp, just cut their starting running back. I mean, it's not going to be like that Rams Chiefs game a few years ago that was like 52-51, and
that was entertaining.
That was entertaining. This one, I as long as Kansas,
did that set a record?
Yeah, I think so.
It was points in the game. Yeah, I think it did.
It was either the biggest
like
scoring
total points.
Yeah, total points. Yeah, total points.
But I mean, as long as KC doesn't, does not beat themselves or do a whole bunch of stupid stuff, I really don't see how they lose this game. I mean, you're talking about a Rams secondary that when they gave up 3 touchdowns to Andy Dalton, and let's see, he had a 90.
Look. Let's be honest. His nickname is the Red Rifle.
Red Rifle.
The Red Rocket.
Okay.
Red Rocket or Red Rifle? Which one it is?
Red Rifle.
I thought it was Red Water Pistol.
But I mean,
that's for those that don't like him. For those who are actually respectful, they call him the Red Rifle.
Okay.
Well, either way, the Red Rocket is not Patrick Mahomes. So, if I would feel pretty confident going into this game, looking at the stats. You can call him Kermit if you want. Dude's a baller and a closer, and is the best quarterback in this league and probably solidified MVP at this point. But either way you spin it, Andy Dalton / Red Rocket / Red Rifle is not Patrick Mahomes.
Can we call Patrick Mahomes the Red Rocket since he does wear red? Actually,
if you want to go for it. But I looking at the stats that the Rams secondary gave up to the Saints and that QB, you would feel pretty confident with them going into this game. Juju's back in practice. Tony didn't practice, but he's probably not going to be out. But it's not going to be as big of a factor if you got Juju back. Kelsey's obviously playing at an unreal level right now. And like I said, their Rams offense was already depleted and is even more depleted without Stafford. So I just don't see how, once KC does get rolling, how the Rams are going to be able to keep up with the pace. Like the Chargers, for example, when the Chiefs were scoring for the most part, the Chargers found a way to put points on the board as well in response. And that's like the biggest key to anyone being with KC is keeping with them in the game until the end. I just don't see how the Rams are going to be able to do that. And I don't really see how their defense is going to be, all that successful. Because, I mean, unless Aaron Donald just goes off.
Monstrous.
Which he absolutely can do. I mean, he's still very much that guy.
Right.
Unless he just overtakes and, has like 5 sacks. I mean, they don't have much outside of him. So, and Jalen Ramsey's kind of not Jalen Ramsey right now. And even outside of that, they don't have much else in the secondary that's respectable.
Ramsey seems to be missing the linebacker core that they used to have in the Rams that they've kind of gutted.
Well, they're definitely missing not having Von Miller is really, really impacted them. They don't have that second complementary pass rush.
Yeah, but I think the complementary secondary period, like I think he's missing the safeties. I think he's missing a good secondary corner. Yeah, I think he's missing a lot of things.
It's very evident, in my opinion, that the F them picks approach is imploding or exploding in the Rams.
You can't say that because it did result in a championship, but it's not working out long term. It's a short term philosophy, not a long term one.
Yeah, but I mean, this has to be like the craziest Super Bowl title run, like just the worst one.
The hangover, the Super Bowl hangover after the fact. Yeah,
they're what are they, 3-7? Something last place in the West.
Yeah, they're not good.
Yeah. So it's just like I said, as long as the Chiefs don't shoot themselves in the foot, too much. I really don't see how
the third string quarterback just come in with a mask on next week.
Right. Hey, they lost to the Colts, so I guess crazy things
Strange things have happened, right? Yeah.
But I really feel like they've, like I've kind of been a broken record saying, but I mean, every week you see them progress more, I feel like, in terms of offense and effectiveness and moving the ball. They're not the same team, obviously, that play the Colts. And I think that's pretty apparent. Plus, it's going to be interesting to see how Pacheco does. They put Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the IR today. So
go Isaiah. I got him in my fantasy team. Go Isaiah.
So, I mean, you got to think, regardless once they named him the starter, they kind of stopped giving Clyde touches, but it'll be interesting to see how much better he plays, without that looming over him, knowing he's the guy and he's probably going to get at least 50. I mean, he had 100 yards last week.
True.
Certainly an effective runner and helps the Chiefs offense be even that more successful. Because, I mean, honestly, I don't think if they weren't successful in running the ball last week, it probably Chargers win that game, because then you all have to do is focus on Kelsey. I mean, when he got to the point of Tony getting hurt, which was early on. So, if they can keep that going, I expect to see them run the ball, especially just because the Rams defense is really not that good. But they're more so not good in defending the pass more than the run. But I think you see them. They've kind of been, like you said earlier, adapting, so to speak, and at least making an effort to run more than they would in the past couple years. So I think you see them grow on that, especially with a rookie 7th round guy that at least at this point has appeared promising. So, that's just something to watch. To me, the most interesting aspect of the game is to see how they evolve the running game more, knowing they're going against a pretty inferior defense and just team in general with a 3rd string quarterback. Just hope that they don't oversee this opponent and it turns into a trap game.
True.
I agree. I mean, with this upcoming game against the Ghostbusters there in with Darnold as your, we have all sorts of interesting things coming up this week with, backup quarterbacks, 3rd string this, 4th string that. What really separates this season for me, at least in my eyes, is the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, why?
And it's absolutely remarkable the sheer volume of injuries that we have this season. And I agree. So guys, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and close out the show. I think that was a great full recap of all the. The AFC West is obviously a storied rivalry in terms of our kind of recap from this past week, and it's not very often where all 4 AFC West teams play each other in the same week, which we had last week in week 11. Coming up in week 12, we have a much more diverse schedule in terms of where we all play other teams from other areas and divisions.
And then week 13.
And week 13 is going to be another interesting one as well. But guys, that's going to do us for the show today. We've had a great show. We want to thank all of you for jumping in here, and for all of you who are in the fantastic, wonderful, great country of the United States of America. Happy Thanksgiving.
USA.
Indeed.
All right. And we call it Turkey Day here in Canada, but I don't know what you guys refer to it there, but happy Thanksgiving to all of you who are joining us both during the show and after the fact, because we are joining you live just before the American Thanksgiving Day. And if you have any other questions or comments that you'd like to leave below, please do so below each of our videos on all of our channels. We will do our very best to respond to you. If you would like to reach out to us on Twitter at all, you can find me at RichiRichEh. And we have Coach Defense. You can find him on Twitter and all of the other social media platforms, as well as YouTube. And if you're looking for all of our guests, as well as all of our links and all the other great stuff that we have to offer, you can find that directly below in the description of all of these videos, where we have all of that information and we can go from there. And with that in mind, we will see you next week here on the Wild Wild West podcast, where the West Side is the best side. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.